Imagine spending your whole life believing one promise. This money is for your future. You trust it because it's your parents saying it. You grow up thinking, I'm safe, I'm supported, my dreams are protected. But what if one day you discover that promise was a lie? That's what happened to me. My college fund, years of savings, wasn't waiting for me at all. It was already gone. Not on bills, not on emergencies, but on a wedding. My sister's wedding. My parents decided her big day was worth more than my entire future. And I'll admit it, I broke. But in breaking, I also built something else, a plan. Because when they robbed me of my future, I swore I'd steal back the truth. And the place I chose to do it? Right there, at the wedding itself. Yes, I crashed it. And I didn't show up alone. I walked in with a guest no one expected. A guest who turned their fairy tale night into pure chaos. But before I tell you how everything unfolded, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because trust me, what you're about to hear is not a story of a wedding. It's a story of betrayal, revenge, and the moment everything in my family shattered. And once that secret guest walked in, nothing could ever go back to normal. You know, when people ask me about my childhood, I don't say it was perfect. But I do say it felt secure. Secure in the sense that I always believed my parents had a plan for me. They weren't rich, no. They weren't the kind of parents who could hand me everything on a silver platter. But what they did promise, over and over, was this. Your college fund is safe. Don't worry about your future, we've got you. And I carried that promise like a shield. It was the one thing that made me feel different from the kids who had nothing saved. While they stressed about loans and debts, I believed I was lucky. I believed my parents were different. But here's the thing about promises. They're only as strong as the people who make them. My family dynamic wasn't simple. I was the older child. My sister, the younger one, was what I can only describe as the golden child. She didn't have to work as hard. She didn't face the same rules. And yet, somehow, she was adored for everything she did, while I was expected to carry the weight of responsibility. If she got in trouble, I was told to cover for her. If she failed at something, the spotlight turned on me. You need to do better. Set the example. Be the good one. And I did it. For years, I played my role like a loyal actor in a badly written play. But deep down, I knew. Love in my family wasn't equal. It was conditional, and I was always on the side that got less. Still, the college fund gave me hope. I imagined leaving home, building my life, maybe finally standing on my own without being compared to her. I had dreams of studying something real, something meaningful, and every time the thought of favoritism ate at me, I reminded myself, at least my future is mine. At least the fund is safe, until the day it wasn't. But let's not jump there just yet. Before that betrayal, I noticed signs. Little things. Like how my parents would talk about my sister's wedding long before she was even engaged. They'd dream about the decorations, the food, the guests. My mom would cut out bridal magazine pictures and sigh, when your sister gets married, it has to be perfect. Notice, she never said if. She said when, as if my sister's wedding wasn't just an event. It was destiny. I laughed it off, thinking it was just parental excitement. But what I didn't realize was that they weren't planning a wedding around my sister's life. They were planning a wedding around my future, around the very fund they promised belonged to me. You know what's strange? Sometimes betrayal doesn't come like a thunderstorm. It comes slowly, like water dripping from a leaking pipe. You don't notice it at first. You hear a faint sound, you think, it's nothing. But by the time you look closely, the entire ceiling is about to collapse. That was my family. That was my childhood. Looking back, maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe the favoritism was a clue. Maybe my parents' obsession with my sister's perfect day should have been the red flag. But when you're desperate to believe you're loved, you ignore the red flags. You paint them green, just so you can keep walking. And I walked straight into the trap. So here I was, a teenager about to step into adulthood, holding on to the belief that I had something solid behind me, a future, a safety net, a promise that my work would mean something. I didn't know that my parents had already made their choice, that while I was dreaming of lectures and libraries, they were quietly draining the account that was supposed to be mine. And the worst part? They didn't even tell me. I had to discover it myself. But that moment, the moment I uncovered the truth, is another story. For now, just understand this. The stage was set long before the betrayal. My parents had their favorite. My sister had her dream, and me, I was just the silent investor, the background character funding someone else's happily ever after. And when I realized that, everything I thought I knew about family started to crack. The truth didn't hit me like lightning. No. It came quietly, like a thief in the night. I was sitting at the kitchen table one evening, going through some papers, trying to calculate how much I had left for tuition. That's when I noticed something odd, numbers that didn't add up. The account that was supposed to be my lifeline looked smaller, much smaller. At first I thought it was a mistake, maybe a bank error, maybe a delay in updating the statements. My heart was pounding, but I told myself not to panic. So I logged into the account, expecting relief. Instead, what I found made my stomach drop. The balance was nearly empty. Gone. Just like that, the years of savings, the years of promises, all of it drained. I remember staring at the screen, frozen. My chest felt tight, my ears were ringing. I couldn't even breathe. I whispered to myself, no, this isn't real. But it was real. And the worst part? It wasn't stolen by strangers. It was taken by the very people who were supposed to protect it. I confronted my parents that night. "Where's my college fund?" I asked, my voice shaking but louder than I expected. They exchanged a look. One of those silent parent conversations that says more than words ever could. My mom sighed and my dad leaned back, avoiding my eyes. Finally, my mom spoke. "We had to use it." I felt my throat close. Had to? What could possibly be more important than my education, my future? "For your sister," my dad said finally. "Her wedding. You know how important this is. Family comes first. Family comes first." The words rang in my ears like a cruel joke. Family comes first. But apparently, I wasn't part of that family. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. More like the kind of laugh that escapes when your world is collapsing and there's nothing left to hold on to. So my future doesn't matter? My life doesn't matter? Her wedding day is worth more than everything I've worked for? My mom put a hand on my arm as if she was consoling me. "You'll be fine. You're smart, you'll figure it out. But your sister, this is her big day. She deserves this. She deserves this." Those words hit harder than any slap. What about what I deserved? What about the nights I stayed up studying? The part-time jobs, the sacrifices, the trust I placed in them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I stood there in silence, shaking with anger I could barely control. That was the night something inside me changed. I realized my parents didn't see me as their child in that moment. They saw me as a resource, a sacrifice, a background character in my sister's story. And here's the cruelest part. They didn't even apologize. They didn't say, "We'll find a way to fix this." No, they told me to understand, to accept, to swallow the betrayal like it was nothing. But I couldn't. That night, while they slept soundly, dreaming about flowers and wedding halls, I lay awake in my room. And as the anger turned into fire, I made myself a promise. If they thought they could steal my future for her fairy tale, then I'd make sure their fairy tale didn't end the way they imagined. And in that moment, the idea sparked, the dangerous, thrilling idea of crashing the wedding, not alone, but with a guest no one expected. After that night, the house became a stage. My parents and sister buzzed around like excited actors rehearsing for the grand performance. Every conversation, every laugh, every detail revolved around the wedding. The flowers, the catering, the guest list, and me, I was just a shadow in the corner, watching, listening, and burning. I can't even explain the level of extravagance. My sister wanted it all. The designer dress, the chandelier-lit hall, the ice sculptures that looked like they belonged in some royal palace. And my parents, they gave it to her, piece by piece, like magicians pulling coins from thin air. Only it wasn't magic. It was my future funding her fantasy. Each dollar they spent felt like a knife twisting deeper. When my mother gushed about the floral arrangements, I thought of textbooks I'd never buy. When my father bragged about the live band, I pictured the lectures I'd never attend. And when my sister paraded around showing off her diamond jewelry, I remembered the dorm room I'd never stepped foot in. It wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. But here's the thing. While they thought I was silent, I was planning. I started paying attention, not to the decorations but to the cracks. Who was invited? Who wasn't? Who my sister bragged about, and who she avoided talking about. And that's when it came to me, the idea for the secret guest. At first it scared me, the thought of showing up at that wedding with someone who could tear everything apart. It felt reckless, dangerous. But the more I watched my family treat me like a ghost, the more I realized I had nothing left to lose. My sister's fiancé wasn't exactly a saint. Everyone in the family whispered things about him, stories my parents chose to ignore because it didn't fit their perfect day narrative. I thought about that. I thought about who else might want to be heard. And slowly the plan took shape, but to pull it off I had to play along. So I smiled when they showed me the guest list. I nodded when they asked me to help set up decorations. I even carried boxes of centerpieces into the hall, every step fueling the storm brewing inside me. They thought I was obedient. They thought I had accepted my role as the forgotten child. But inside, I was laughing, because they had no idea what was coming. The night before the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. My face was calm, but my eyes looked like fire. That's when I realized I wasn't just attending my sister's wedding. I was about to rewrite it. And as I laid down that night, the last thought in my mind wasn't fear. It wasn't regret. It was a single sharp certainty. Tomorrow, the stage would be mine. The morning of the wedding felt strange. The whole house was vibrating with excitement. Hairdressers, makeup artists, photographers swarming like bees around a golden queen. My sister was glowing in her white gown, my parents floating around as if they had just won the lottery. And me? I sat in silence, tying my shoes, holding on to the one secret that none of them suspected. Because while they were preparing for their perfect day, I was preparing for the storm, the secret guest. Even now, when I say those words, my heart beats faster. You see, I didn't just want to crash the wedding. That would have been too easy. I wanted the truth to crash it with me. The kind of truth that can't be silenced, can't be brushed off, can't be ignored. And I knew exactly who could deliver it. Weeks earlier, while my parents planned floral arrangements, I started making calls. Quietly, carefully. I spoke to someone my family had worked very hard to erase from the story. My sister's fiancé's ex. Yes, you heard me. The woman he had left behind. The one who carried stories that no one at this wedding wanted to hear. Stories about broken promises, lies, and betrayals that painted him as anything but the perfect husband. When I reached out, she was hesitant at first. Why revisit the past? Why step into the lion's den? But then I told her the truth. How my family stole my future to fund this circus. How they wanted to bury her existence so my sister could shine. She was quiet for a long time. And then, she said the words that sealed it. Tell me where to be. I'll come. So I gave her the details. And as the wedding drew closer, the plan grew stronger in my mind. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about exposing the rotten core that my parents refused to see. If they wanted a perfect day, then they would have to watch it crumble under the weight of the truth. The morning of the wedding, I sent her one final message. It's happening today. Be ready. And as the cars lined up outside, as guests in glittering dresses and sharp tuxedos stepped into the hall, I knew she was out there, waiting, watching, prepared to walk into the fire with me. That thought made me almost smile. Because while my parents posed for photos and my sister adjusted her veil, believing she was the star of the show, I knew something they didn't. The real star of the night hadn't even arrived yet, and when she walked through those doors, she wouldn't just be a guest. She would be the match to the gasoline, the voice no one could silence, the ghost from the past that would tear apart the illusion of perfection my family built on my broken future. So when I stepped into that wedding hall, I wasn't just another guest, I was a messenger. And the message was simple. You can't bury the truth forever. It always finds its way back. The wedding hall looked like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, violins played softly in the background, and tables dripped with flowers so heavy they looked ready to collapse. Guests were buzzing, glasses clinking, laughter echoing, and right in the center of it all was my sister, smiling like a queen, her hand curled into her fiancé's arm. My parents beaming like they had just crowned royalty. To everyone else, it was perfect. But to me, it was a crime scene. I walked in quietly, taking a seat at the edge of the room. Nobody noticed the way my hands gripped the chair. Nobody noticed the storm sitting in my chest. They thought I was just a brother, another family member blending into the crowd, but I wasn't. I was waiting. The moment came when the MC announced the couple, asking everyone to raise their glasses for the happiest day of their lives. The room filled with applause, whistles, cheers. My parents' eyes were glowing, drinking in the admiration, and that's when the doors opened. She stepped in, my secret guest. At first, no one really understood who she was. Just a woman in a simple black dress, walking with calm steps toward the center of the hall. But I knew. My sister's fiancé knew. The blood drained from his face faster than the champagne in his glass. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers rose. People began nudging each other, pointing, trying to place her. And then she spoke. "I wasn't invited," she said, her voice steady but sharp enough to cut the music in half. "But maybe I should have been." The room fell silent. My sister's smile froze, her hand tightening on her fiancé's arm. My parents looked at each other in horror, their perfect fantasy slipping through their fingers. The ex didn't need a microphone. Her words carried. "Do you want to tell them? Or should I?" she asked him, her eyes locked on the groom. He stuttered, tried to laugh it off, but it was too late. The silence of hundreds of eyes staring at him was heavier than any truth. So she told it herself. The lies, the promises, the betrayal. Every detail spilled into the air like poison. She talked about how he had strung her along, about the overlapping timelines, about the things he said to her that he was probably still whispering to my sister. And the crowd? They ate it up. Some shook their heads. Some whispered furiously. Some even pulled out their phones, recording every second like they were watching a live soap opera unravel in front of them. My sister's face turned white, then red. My parents tried to intervene, my father stepping forward, my mother reaching out as if she could physically push the truth back into silence. But the damage was done. The perfect illusion they had built with my stolen future was shattering right there, in front of everyone. And me? I just sat there, still and calm, watching the empire fall. For once, It wasn't me who had to prove I was right. It wasn't me shouting into the void, begging to be heard. The truth had a voice, and it was louder than all of their excuses combined. The groom tried to speak, to deny, but the cracks in his voice betrayed him. The ex pulled out messages, screenshots on her phone, proof, irrefutable, undeniable proof. And the room gasped again. That was the moment the chaos truly began. My sister burst into tears, screaming at him. Guests whispered in disgust, some already leaving, shaking their heads. The band stopped playing. The waiters froze mid-step. And my parents, their faces looked like stone. They didn't look at me. They couldn't, because deep down they knew I had brought this. Their perfect day was over. Their betrayal of me was now mirrored in front of everyone, carved into a night they would never forget. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to throw a single punch. All I had to do was sit back and let the truth burn everything they stole from me. And as I watched the chaos swirl around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. The music never came back on. The violinists stood frozen, their bows hovering midair like they were afraid to touch the strings again. Guests shuffled in their seats, murmuring, their once celebratory smiles now twisted into pity or disgust. My sister was sobbing uncontrollably, her makeup streaking down her cheeks, her wedding dress no longer glowing but crumpled and heavy under the weight of humiliation. The groom, if you could still call him that, stood there pale, sweating, his mouth opening and closing like a man drowning with no lifeline. And my parents. They looked older in that moment. Much older. The pride that had carried them for months collapsed into a hollow emptiness. My father tried to comfort my sister, muttering something about fixing this, while my mother begged the guests to, please understand, please don't leave. But the guests did leave. One by one they stood, whispered, and slipped out the door. Some were shaking their heads. Some were even smirking, entertained by the wreckage of a family that had tried to show off too much. Me, I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there and watched the fire I had started burn itself out. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being silenced. The truth had been spoken, not by me but because of me, and no one could take that back. I caught my father's eyes once. Just once. He looked at me like he knew. Maybe he didn't know how, maybe he didn't know when, but he knew I had opened the door to the secret that ruined his perfect day. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I let him sit in the realization that he had traded my future for this disaster. The irony was almost poetic. They stole from me to give her the perfect wedding. And now, instead of fairy tale photos and glowing speeches, they had chaos, tears, and shame. All bought with my stolen future, and strangely enough, I didn't feel guilty, not one bit. Because when someone burns your dreams, you have two choices. Let the ashes bury you, or light a fire of your own. That night, I chose fire. And as I walked out of the hall, before the last guest had even left, before my parents could gather the courage to stop me, I realized something. I hadn't just crashed a wedding. I had taken back my voice. Silence can follow you louder than any scream. When I left that wedding hall, I thought I'd feel victorious, free even. I imagined the weight of years of betrayal sliding off my shoulders. But walking into the cold night, hearing the echo of my own footsteps, that silence was deafening. For the first time, doubt crept in. Had I destroyed too much? Yes, my parents betrayed me. They carved my dreams apart with smiling faces and dressed lies in ribbons. But now my sister's life was shattered too. The groom's family would never forget the humiliation. The whispers would never stop. And deep inside I wondered, had I just become the very thing I hated? Revenge is intoxicating in theory, but in practice it's messy. It doesn't wrap neatly like in movies. It spills, it stains, and it lingers. That night, lying awake, I kept asking myself, did I crash a wedding to expose the truth, or to punish them? And here's the truth I don't want to admit. I felt both. My parents had always made it clear. My future was negotiable. My sister's happiness was not. And that night, I balanced the scales. But justice isn't clean. It leaves scars. The calls started the next day. First from distant relatives, some congratulating me. Yes, congratulating for finally showing the truth. Then the angry ones. My parents, my sister, even family friends calling me heartless, cruel, ungrateful. Ungrateful, that word stung. Because gratitude dies when betrayal lives. And yet, when the anger in their voices faded, when the phone went silent, I felt something else. Emptiness. I had gotten what I wanted, hadn't I? I had exposed them, taken back my voice. But now what? My college fund was still gone. My family was broken, and the future I thought I'd walk into felt even further away. Maybe that's the real price of revenge. You win, but you never walk away untouched. Still, even in the quiet, even in the guilt, one thing stayed unshaken. I didn't regret revealing the truth. They had stolen my future, and in return, I had taken away the illusion of theirs. Some people call that cruel. I call it balance. Time has a way of dulling even the sharpest chaos. The wedding day became yesterday's news, then last month's scandal, and finally, just another whispered cautionary tale at family gatherings I'm no longer invited to. And yet, for me, it never faded, because every choice we make plants something in us. Some choices grow peace, others grow shadows. Do I regret what I did? No, not really. I regret that it had to come to that the people I trusted most left me no other choice. They pushed me to the edge, and when I jumped, they were shocked to see I could land on my feet. My sister never spoke to me again. My parents, oh, they tried in their own way. Not apologies, of course. Just excuses. We had no choice. You'll understand one day. But those words meant nothing. They were the same hands that had stolen my future, still pretending they were clean. So I chose something different. I left, I cut ties. I started carving out a life with what I had left. It wasn't easy. The fund was gone, but freedom. Freedom has a value no money can touch. I built myself, brick by brick, out of the ashes of that night. And slowly I realized, revenge isn't about winning or losing. It's about taking back control when someone decides your life belongs to them. That's what I did. And maybe you're listening now, wondering if you'd have done the same. Maybe you're thinking, no, I'd never go that far. But let me ask you, if the people who promised to protect your future ripped it away without hesitation, would you really stay silent? Would you just smile at their lies and toast to their betrayal? Or would you, like me, find your fire? Because in the end, life gives you moments where you either bend or you break. And the night of that wedding, I refused to bend any longer. They may have taken my college fund, but I took back something far greater. My truth. My voice. And once you have that, they can never steal it again.